Hi, everyone, and welcome to this new podcast of Furt'Her. Here we feature women in Web3 and AI, and today I have the pleasure to be in San Diego. I am in San Diego, and my host is this
Cheryl
amazing woman
Goodman.
here, Cheryl
Yeah.
Goodman. Cheryl Goodman has a very spanning career in tech and across different industry. I will have to take my notes because I don't know all of what you have done, but I know that you have worked for MP3, Sony, Qualcomm, and now you are the founder of FindGood.tech.
Yes.
What common trait do you see in how technology disruption shapes industries?
That's a really good question, and thanks for having me. I've had so much fun partnering with you in San Diego as an entrepreneur and learning more about you. So, thank you. Because I'm older, I mean, I've been in technology since 1997. I mean, I started out in a news station, and this was traditional broadcast news. That's a lot of time. And so I will kind of take us back to the fundamentals of technology, as the concept of analog technology,
Yeah.
versus digital. And so my entire career journey was really, I was in the right time at the right place. Of course, I had been prepared to ascend because I had, studied hard and made the right connections and all of those things that we have to do to allow luck to propel us,
Indeed, yeah.
right? And so as a result of that, I started my career just as the internet was really getting started. And so in 1997, yes, it had been around for some time, but it was still very elusive what the commerce was going to be. And we know that because we use the .com as the bellwether to evaluate, are people getting too excited? Are they too hyped up about stuff? And as you well know, as an expert in AI and blockchain, is like there's a real propensity for people to get a little intoxicated
Yeah.
on the technology and think it's magic and so forth. And so I know that the transition from analog to digital, whether it was news or was the disruption of music with MP3.com, which basically rewrote the entire definition of how music was distributed, or whether it was smartphones or any number of things we've experienced, cloud, all of those things that we've experienced has fundamentally changed business. And there's timeless truths that exist in every single one of those transitions. And so I always try and orient myself back to what is the value that we're sharing or selling, and the analogy I use, because it's such a physical one, is it's as physical as a fruit that is grown on a tree.
Yeah.
Like that
Yeah.
is the,
Yeah.
and if
Indeed.
you can say, this is what I produce, and if you
Yes.
water me and you take care of me and you keep the pests off of me, and when you're not like by a toxic sewer, then maybe the
Of
fruit
course.
will turn out
Yes.
okay.
And
So
like if you compare the different disruption that you have lived in the different eras, like what is today the disruption with AI? What is different with the disruption of AI that
yeah,
you can compare with the other one that you have
yeah.
been across?
There's quite a few differences. There's a lot of similarities. What I love about the similarities is we've basically taken uh, you know, a token of
Yes.
information, if I
Yeah.
may say, a unit of measure of a piece of information, of all of these words, and we've combined them in one, and they're recasting out new content, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we could say the same thing of the disruption of music. This was the first major media that was disrupted, when, in the Napster era. And again, if you're, many of your viewers, I imagine, probably have always listened to digital
Yes.
music. But
Yeah.
prior to that, it was really the licensing structure, the entire business model was built around a physical item.
Sure.
So when that physical item kind of said, you no longer need that, you have a digital key to be able to get whatever, it disrupted, and it caused lawsuits and it caused laws to change. And there was a point in time when even at Sony, VCRs were considered an illegal device because they
Mm.
recorded TV shows. And so we think of that now, like, how crazy is that?
Yeah.
Right. So I guess I come back to is ultimately is that we must always expect change. It is
Mm-hmm.
constant. Like we should never ever be caught off guard. And that the parallels are this disruption of the business models. That's the
Yeah.
number one
Yeah.
thing is how are we now going to, if you're an author, your business model is very different now because everyone can be an author in a couple of hours. Now, I'm not sure how good their books will be, but
Yeah, it's
you know,
possible. It's
we've
made possible.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And
yeah,
so that we've democratized, which just means is everyone, knowledge is now a commodity. And when knowledge is a commodity, maybe it calls into question, do you have to spend 8 years at university or 4 years at a
yeah,
university? And, I believe that the people go to university because they really are the network.
yeah.
It's the network effects. It's building trust with humans in real time. I don't think that ever changes. I don't think blockchain or AI will ever change that. I think it may advance and accelerate that after
Mhm.
once you have that base. So as much as the industry is changing, education, content, time to market is a big one. If you're an entrepreneur, you've heard the solopreneur, rise of the solopreneur. You too can do everything in a company. I think that's a little unrealistic. I think what's more realistic is entire departments collapsing. Maybe you go to market. If you're a marketing person, that also maybe oversees sales now, growth hacking, business development. Maybe it is product UI, like all of those
Yeah.
front of house things. And then I think you have a builder. And I even think that the role of CEO has now been diluted because when I think about CEOs, most of the best CEOs are really good people that can cast vision.
Yeah.
They're well networked. They are ultimately administrators, though.
Mm-hmm.
You do this, you do this. They're pushing information, silos of
Mm-hmm.
information. They're curating and they're trying to create this flywheel of activity. I think that's the job that's going to be disrupted. I think we're either
Yeah.
all going to be CEOs,
Yeah.
with smaller companies, or there will be no CEO. So I think the leadership infrastructure of how companies are structured is under transformation.
Okay, and do you see that with your clients?
Mm,
How can you tell us a little bit about your AI workshop?
yeah,
Like what is the demand that you see from
yeah.
companies? What is the level of expertise that is internal and what is
Mm.
expected from external trainings?
Yeah, this is all very good questions. Well, I'll take a step back and say, since I wrote the book, How to Win Friends and Influence Robots, I basically, in 2022, upon immediately interacting with OpenAI in its beta, I knew the world had changed. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
I have
Yeah.
got to. So coming from Sony background where I'd worked on robotics and, we'd done a lot with machine learning and from Qualcomm days. And full disclosure, I am not a computer scientist. I'm not an engineer, but I had the job of making something as like a semiconductor, understandable, sexy, relevant, dealing with investors, then also to working with product development teams to say, ultimately, these are the feature sets that people care about. This is a problem. This is the fruit.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Don't care about what fertilizer you used.
Yeah.
Don't care about, all the other things on this tree. All they care about is the fruit. So I've always been a really good marketer, if I have to say so myself. And actually, and the reason why I give myself that compliment is because it was a hard-won skill I had earned in the age of MP3.com because at that time it was guerrilla marketing. You were fighting to stay alive because you had 5 lawsuits against you. I remember lawsuit after lawsuit going to every country, Benelux regions being sued in every country across the United States wherever there was digital music distribution. And so I had to learn very quickly how can you articulate the value of digital music. And so that skill really is what brought me into Qualcomm. And so if I get back to your question on AI and what are people looking for? Well, they're still looking for that same way to tell their business story in the most accurate, tangible, accessible way possible. They still want premium pricing,
Mm-hmm.
right? So none of our business needs or desires have changed. What's changed is we think that we can get a shortcut. We think that, okay, now I could do marketing copy, web copy, publish a book. I can automate, this condition, if this, and then that. I can turn on the chatbots for customer service.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that these are all what I would call tactics. This is
Yeah.
not a strategy.
Yeah.
And these are things that live in silos. We start to get economies of scale and efficiency when we really understand what a workflow for an average employee looks like. And so this is going to be easier for some jobs than others. Obviously, customer service, well, it's kind of like I think that ship has sailed.
Yeah.
This is probably going to be very much supported by AI. But then you have to ask yourself, well, what if my client is a high-end luxury brand. Do you really want to hand off that conversation to a chatbot?
Indeed.
You know,
Indeed.
as an
Yeah.
$80,000 purchase. I don't know. You may want to build a relationship with this person. So,
Oh,
so I think these are the things that we have to think about. What are we trying to achieve? And as sexy and as intoxicating as much as I just like you, which is why I'm so glad you're here because I think we're very similar, is that we really do love these in what feels like really elevating technologies,
yes.
you
Yeah.
know? And so who wouldn't love that? But while we love that, doesn't mean it solves the true bottleneck of our business. So
Yeah. And you have to
yeah.
stick to your values because, as you said, it's not because there is a hype of AI that
Mm.
everything has to be AIized in your company.
Right.
So you can still make sure that in your tactics
Yeah.
and in your strategy, depending on your product, your service, and your target, that you have the proper amount of human interaction
Mm.
and to value your customer with that human interaction.
Mhm.
So it's also a way when I give trainings, people were scared of losing their job, and I say, no,
Mhm.
if you have good management, your manager will make sure that will automate some repetitive task or some unuseful task for you, but
Mm.
that you will be able to do something that adds more value to the client
Right.
and brings more value to the client. So it's a way to shift also the
Mhm.
responsibilities within the teams and to make sure that we add value as human beings
Mhm.
where we were losing time with some
Yeah.
tasks. So I think it's really more than just implementing AI.
Mm.
It's redesigning
Yeah.
also
I love that.
the workflow and the job responsibilities.
Right. And then managing anxiety, because the first thing,
Oh,
just
yeah.
like me in 2022, and I had already started writing a book. So by the time that, I'm really messing around with this, and I'm like, oh, this can really be a support. And as someone who also does, a lot of go to market, there's a lot of writing involved in these things.
Yes.
And especially if you're dealing with public companies and you're like, comma, right place, like all this stuff. I remember spending hours on press releases and taking input from 5 different people and then trying to balance it and then getting it back. So it's like I look at that and I'm like, thank God those days are gone. Like we
Yeah.
have concluded that effort in this is to me the dream scenario of AI is crafting that content. But the bottom line is if you're a RPR person, you're talking to your PR team and that's all they've done,
Yeah.
then they're a little freaked out. So as a leader, you have to say, well, this person knows everybody. She's highly networked. She's strategic. She has a relationship with the investors as well as the press. Can we not do something different? Can you start a
Mhm.
webinar series? Can you
Yeah.
start a podcast series? Oh, and by the
You
way,
have to get creative and go back. Yeah.
yeah,
Just
because
yeah.
it is not what we're doing that's changed,
Yeah.
it's how we're doing it,
Yeah. Indeed. Indeed.
which I think is kind
Yeah.
of a
Yeah.
baby epiphany in
Yeah.
some ways. Like, gosh, really, all these compliments to yourself, epiphanies, I'm great at this, but it's like,
Yes.
it's just the how.
Yes.
And
Indeed.
then
Yeah.
ultimately, why? Why are you doing this? What is the ultimate goal? How does this serve the customer? And if that makes sense, and you say, oh, well, my margin is this much, this is how much money I'm making, and this tool costs me this much, and because I've done the workflow work, I can see that I've saved this much. Well, of course you're going to do it, right?
Yes. Right.
So it just makes
Yeah.
sense. I think we just have to kind of take a chill pill. I think we just have to calm down, to breathe, do some
Yeah.
breathing exercises.
Yes.
And, ultimately, as all things that are complex, frightening, and exciting, we have to really educate ourselves of what's real.
Indeed, yes. And I know that you're also part of the Startup San
Yes.
Diego chair board. I wanted to ask you, how do you see the startups coming up and implementing AI or being only AI based?
Yeah.
Like, how do you see this innovation being taken by the younger entrepreneurs?
This is such a great question. Well, I think there's two parts of it. So the first part of it is also in 2022, I was asked to be on the board of Startup San Diego. And I said yes. I was actually asked over Twitter. It was really funny. Hey, would you want to be on our board? And I'm like, absolutely, let's do it. At that time, this was the very beginning days. And so I said yes because I knew everything was going to be redefined. I may not have said yes if we weren't in the beginning stages or the birth pangs, as it were, to deliver the AI baby that would change
Yes.
everything, right? I probably wouldn't have said yes. But I'm like, it's going to be really important for me to watch the pattern recognition of how this is being adopted, what the issues are going to be, and
Yeah.
and so from this pattern, so we have the last quarter of 2022, we have 23, 24, and now we're almost at the tail end of 25. So a little over three years, and in 3 years we are 10 times further than I thought we'd be. So early days it was AGI, artificial
Yeah.
general intelligence, robots going to kill you, whatever. Like, here's my 2 cents on that.
Okay, give it to me.
If you actually think that you could stop the robots from killing you, then great, then you should worry about it. If you don't think that you can, then there's nothing you can do about it. Why don't you just focus on your business? Because it's kind of like knowing what you can control. We cannot control. I mean, maybe we can influence through advocacy and through politics,
Yeah.
participation and writing and so forth. But the net is these things are going to come together on a macro level scale.
Yeah.
And so we shouldn't take this emotional burden on ourselves that the robots are going to kill us. We should take the emotional burden to say, my job might change. I might need to reduce my expenses. I might need to do some retraining. I might need to take a class on entrepreneurship. And so back to Startup San Diego, we are a nonprofit that basically serves the community, anyone from entrepreneurs to entrepreneurs. These are people that love the idea of startups, but then when they really get in, they're like, oh
Yeah,
crap,
too much.
this is very difficult. And then there's forcepreneurs. And so this is the
Okay.
part that I think is most important.
Okay.
We have reams of graduating students or students that are underemployed that
Yeah.
really have not just, they don't have discretionary income for all of these AI subscriptions.
Yeah.
They may have a 4-year degree with a student loan, but they're working in a coffee shop. And so the economics aren't really fitting for the up and comer. So the call to action to them is that get involved in open source and you can learn for free. This is the beauty of all of this. You don't have to go into tech debt or any other debt. You have to join a community group. And this is why I do it, is because ultimately, if you want it, it can be had. The information is democratized. Now, the challenge is it's not curated. And AI has discolored trust a little bit, obviously. I mean, this is why I think this is so deeply tied into blockchain and, trustless systems and all of these things. But the net is business operates at the speed of trust. That's a truism from Stephen Covey. We transact because we trust, and we slow our transactions down because we don't trust.
Yes.
So if you're AIified and everything's dripping AI, you have to ask yourself again, back to that fruit. Does it have pesticides in it?
Yeah.
What is
Yeah.
this? What is this tree? What is this
Indeed.
tree
Yeah.
producing? I love the tree analogy. It's actually making me hungry now that I think about it, but
Well, it's not time for lunch.
not yet.
We're going
not
for
yet.
coffee after.
Yes, an espresso
Yes,
by
please
being
do.
trained. My Italian co-part here, but yeah. So to explicitly say what I'm seeing is I am seeing a lot of vibe coding,
Yes.
right? Okay, lovable, replit, cursor, insert, vibe code there. Fantastic, fun, magical, slightly expensive, not fully efficient yet. It is awe-inspiring and to see what it can do, but it is, can you transact? Can your customer trust you?
Yeah.
So I'm seeing a
Yeah.
lot of people participate in the tools,
Yeah.
but then I have to ask myself, what unique value would they be bringing to the tool? Whether it's data or, we were talking earlier about reams of video content or
Yes.
images that
Yes.
need to be sorted, or, what is their data? What is it they're going to do? And so this is the opportunity for the average person to really think about, what am I an expert at that, deserves a little AI-ifying that.
This is what we said. We
Yeah.
need a vision. We still need an idea
Yes.
before implementing AI. It's
Right.
not we take AI and then we do something.
Right.
It's first you have an idea and then
And-
you
Right,
yeah.
it's kind of like, I think on the panel I was at earlier, it's just like, hey, do you want to jump in a car and go fast? I'd love to jump in a car and go fast. Where are we going?
Yeah. Indeed.
I mean, it's like,
Indeed.
okay,
Yeah.
maybe when I was a teenager that was okay, but I'm like, I got kind of older now. Like, I
Yeah.
kind of want to know where we're going. Are we going to pick up something or drop off something? Are we going on vacation? So, what are we doing here? Like,
Yes.
what problem are we solving here? And so
Totally.
that's what we have to get back to. And I would say that ultimately too is, if you don't know, if you don't think, hey, I don't know really any unique pocket of data, or I've not done anything unique, you can do things like one of my employees just came from the Notion conference. Okay, so yes, proximity helps, but there are many conferences around that where the provider of the software, they're so desperate right now to get people on the platforms
Yeah.
to get them baked in. You can really get low cost training from now. They're biased to the software producer, of course, but if this is an issue of underemployment and lack of resources, the only way out is through.
Yeah.
So you got to
Yeah.
get through the learning.
Yeah.
You've
Indeed.
got to, you could start a community group,
Yes.
and this is for someone that's kind of younger on this. But you asked an earlier question too about what are companies seeing? Well, companies are seeing that 40% of most of the integrations of AI or implementations rather are actually yielding not good return on investment. That it is they're spending more money and they're getting less stellar results. And I think this study was from MIT. I think it's a flawed study in the sense is that they're really asking about what I would consider the last mile of AI. Those things we just talked about, chatbots, marketing copy, all of those things that are, really generative
Yes.
AI,
Yes. Yeah.
but it's not necessarily systematic infrastructure of agentic AI. And the concept that I want to get you to think about is that the reason why tech companies make so much money is because they've achieved the economies of scale of creating technology that you're not paying a fee or a token every time you have a transaction.
Mm.
So when we think about things like and I know you know this, the integrations, all right? Okay, you want an automated chatbot on your Instagram? I have one. Okay, I have a little set of credit card tied to it, and every time someone sends me a message, my little stupid chatbot says something stupid and it costs me, and I see my money. I see, right? So there's a direct correlation to
Yes.
every time these words get generated, I see money going away from
Yeah.
my account.
It costs.
It
Yeah.
costs money. And so
Yeah.
it's like, okay, did that convert? Did
Yeah.
I program that bot to basically say, here, buy the book? Or
Yeah.
here, book me for a training. And so you still got to work through that mechanism. Your book still has to be good. Your training still
Yeah.
has to be good,
Indeed.
right? So that's one thought. The other thought on that is most of the platforms out there are charging on this per transaction.
Yes.
So when
Yeah.
you think about companies like Zapier,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, you want to do a Zap, you want to do this.
Yeah.
If you're spending more time on the fundamentals of the tools, you'll see things that are competitors to these tools, like N8,
Yes.
N8
N8A.
in. Yeah,
Yeah.
I always kind of like I see it and I'm like,
N8A.
that can't be right. What were they thinking when they named that company? But Zapier,
Yes.
Zapes, I don't know. But
Eight in.
N8N,
Yes.
these fractions of pennies
Yeah.
to do thousands of integrations.
Yeah.
So it's like, think in big scale, think in big scale, think about cheap. Don't, and I think what this requires is to really understand the fundamentals of AI. And no one likes this message
Yeah.
because they want a tool, they want a magic wand.
They want to save money.
Yeah, and it's kind of like a diet pill. It's no different than, the state of weight in America.
Yeah,
It's
you
like you
need
want
to
to.
go through the transformation, the thinking, and
Yes.
yeah,
And then you
yeah,
can see, oh, I could use this tool that's open source. I can do thousands of this. And then when I go and build my network of whatever my remote control car collection or whatever it is you do, you have the abilities to near zero cost because you've taught yourself the basics. And again, all this information is out there. This is why I wrote the book. How to Win Friends and Influence Robots really talks about the three primary theories behind how a large language model works. And you know what? The thing that is just astounding to me, these theories are so easy to follow,
yeah,
right? And there is I think, I don't want to say conspiracy, but kind of is that when you go and you study a profession, you really want to protect that and you want to kind of put walls on it. And you're like, hey,
yeah,
you're going to need to pay me. There's no way you'd understand that, but you can. You can. And so I just say, learn the fundamentals of how it works. Then you'll have context for what those risks are,
yeah,
what the true cost can be. I don't think any of this is easy. I think this is, you have to align it to your motivations. And net is get a mentor. If you're not feeling like that pull, get a mentor or minimum, I'm Google Digital certified. Do a Google Digital
yeah,
certification.
yeah. Yeah,
It's not that expensive.
indeed.
You know,
Yeah.
like so there's 1,000 ways to get upskilled. Um, but yeah, you got to get upskilled. There's just no way around it. That's like basically like
It's
if
there and it will be there.
yeah, it's like
Yeah,
carrying around a
yeah,
typewriter or
yeah.
something. Like you just sit on the desk and people would be like, "Oh, what's that guy doing?"
Sure.
Yeah.
We are here in the US.
Yes.
So we are in San Diego, in California. It's a hub of innovation. US as well as a bigger country. Compared to the Europe, because I come from
Mm,
Europe, what's your vision on US innovation and what's
mm,
your take on US innovation? If how do you see European
yeah.
innovation? Like
Well,
how do
yeah,
you?
it's a really interesting question, and it's a deep question. There's probably no right answer because I think it's subjective. And so,
Yes.
in my subjective point of view, as someone who's worked at two major multinational semiconductor companies, Sony was the CMOS image sensor, robotics. I think everyone in the world has global recognition of what Sony does.
Yeah.
And then Qualcomm there is no phone in the world that does not use Qualcomm technology. Every single cellular device, every connected device uses some measure of Qualcomm technology. And so these are both companies that I've spent a lot of my life in. And so when I look at innovation, we know that ultimately compute power and processing power from, NVIDIA and, AMD and everyone in this ecosystem, the semiconductor ecosystem, it's kind of the most important thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And, globally, what's happening now is, Intel, which is, legacy semiconductor, is now being buttressed by NVIDIA. And so if you are in another country and you don't have access to compute power, I
Yeah.
think there's a disadvantage.
Yeah.
Number one. Number
Mm-hmm.
two is the hyperscalers. Well, who are the hyperscalers? Obviously, it's OpenAI, it's Grok, it's these massive companies that really have access to all the data of which we're needing that compute power on.
Yeah.
And so they're going to each country and they're allocating resources. They're doing their rollouts. I don't think Europe is getting these rollouts as quickly.
Yeah.
And I think it's stifling innovation. And
Yeah.
specifically, when I was in Uzbekistan as part of the American Council's training program, I went to Westminster University to train, and I was on panels and engaging with many people from Europe, on the UK, and it was concerning that the level of information was different than what I was seeing.
Mm.
And so I do think that if you are trying to skill up, is to try and go to certainly where at least the old phrase where the hockey puck is going, where you see where it's going. So if that means maybe your regional resource is possibly dated, to just say, listen, it's a democratized world. Like
Yes.
go and get what you need to get. And this is why I suggest Google certification. Again, I'm not trying to be biased on any one provider,
Mhm.
but Google is pretty universal
Yeah.
in terms of their trainings, and they're also in this hyperscaler category. And I would say bottom line is remain vigilant on doing this and look for the use cases that are winning in other markets. Follow entrepreneur culture, follow startup culture. Is there something that you could mirror? Just because it's successful in this market doesn't mean you can't be successful in your market. Or uh, let me say that another way. You can mirror what you're seeing over here because you have your own community that you're going to serve.
Mm-hmm.
And especially in an era of tariffs and other geopolitical complexities, don't worry about the things you can't control.
Yeah.
You can't control the American market. You can't, but what can you control? You can control, I'm going to educate myself. I'm going to look at what's a good business model. I'm going to evaluate my own skill sets, and then I'm going to build accordingly. And I'm just going to keep trying. And you'll fail. And guess what? We all fail 100 times a day, but just keep getting back up.
Yeah.
Net, it's about perseverance.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
the term perseverance is something that's very close, near and dear to my heart because we have to persevere. There are no choices, right?
Sure.
I mean,
We
you
need
could
to
die. I mean, but we don't
with
want to do that.
resilience. Yes.
Don't do that. Like, don't do that. Like, persevere. The world needs
With
you.
resilience. Always.
Yes, yes.
I have one other question for you. What would it be? Would you have like a success story that you would like to share with us where some AI was implemented and was implemented successfully
Mm,
into a project, a company, a startup, whatever, and on the opposite side, where it was wrongly
mhm.
implemented and didn't do the job properly?
Yeah, I mean it's far easier to look at the ones that didn't have success because ultimately it requires discipline. And so I audit companies all the time. One of the products that I offer is basically, let me even see if you're ready to,
Yeah.
to talk AI. And oftentimes companies that aren't AI first or they haven't been AI native for 5, 7, 10, 15 years already, they haven't been in this data. For years there was like big data, big data, big data, and everyone's like, what are they really talking about? Like a lot of
Yeah.
people didn't really know what that meant. Well, the promise of big data is now here. So if you're not that company, let's say I'll give a generic example of a client that's a global retailer, 800 stores, very high-end brand. This particular company, just like many companies, once you start to dig through, you know, where are their servers and what's their software stack and who are they licensing and what are they do, really just evaluating. You can paint a picture of the company. It's like a 15 point, I can actually
Mhm.
share it with you too, right? And it's a 15-point analysis. Most companies only meet 3 of the criteria. You really need to meet at least 10, probably 12 to be able to actually implement an at scale AI plan.
Mhm.
And that means where your customer's data is. It's clean, it's sanitized, you've had good
Mhm.
data hygiene, which I think is such a funny word. But you have those things. Many, many, many companies of all sizes don't meet that criteria,
Okay.
right?
That's
So,
interesting too.
yeah, and
Yeah.
so I think we have to start with basically saying, just like anything in life, what is the reality of the situation? So,
Yeah.
but if you have an aggressive, jacked up board member that's basically like, we're going all in on AI today and we're doing it, and then there's like, we're going to do this, and then build a tiger team, and then go, let's appoint a chief AI officer. So I've seen a lot of that where you get one person that their whole job is to go through the company and say, what's your workflow? Okay, well, then we can do this. What's your workflow? And then you build these tiger teams. Well, what you have is that last mile
Yes.
system. So that is a lot of what we're seeing today. There is a better way.
Yeah.
And the better way really is to think about, back to the fruit analogy.
Yes.
What is the core business? Okay, where can AI help where we know that we have some measure, whether it's unstructured data or it's in data lakes or whatever the state of the data, but we know that this is value and its real utility. A good example is, actually, I'm debating if I should mention this client or not. I won't mention the client, but a good example of someone is that has a lot of legacy data already.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so they have already been cognizant to the value of that data because it's going to build their pipeline or it's going to help them, again, rise to meet the needs
Yeah.
of their customer. So that's not a clean and straightforward answer. There are many use cases
Yeah.
where podcasters, video, multimedia, publishing, any of the kind of last mile marketing, those firms have been transformed.
Yes.
PR agencies, a great PR agency that I work with has really honed in on why PR isn't going to be disrupted by AI, which is crazy
Ah.
because that is literally the first job that you would think of.
Yeah.
You're like, you got a press release writing machine. What do you
Yeah.
go home? Or whatever, like turn on your TV, eat ice cream, like you don't have to work anymore, or whatever, you're fired. That's really what people thought about PR. But the reality is that PR is about relationships and
Mm-hmm.
it's about editorial coverage and it's about massive syndication across many properties. And so when you're using SEO in large language models, well, I should say SEO. SEO is being disrupted because of GEO, and that is basically saying is you need that editorial content, you need those relationships, you need to continue to do what you're doing, and you just have to know that the way you measure is going to change. Efficacy is going to change. So I'd say PR agencies are actually forward-leaning PR agencies lean into that.
Yeah.
Right. And I would
Yeah.
say that that is a good use case because they understand how the technology works. They were the first people to freak out though.
Yeah.
So,
Of course. Yeah.
right.
They had to think.
Yeah, yeah.
They
So,
had to brainstorm.
so
Yeah.
if I were to give just a couple of tips on what any company can do is number one is to understand this thing called shadow usage. And shadow usage is basically people are using AI in your company. They're not telling you because you don't have a policy and you have not endorsed it in you've not done this. And so basically they're taking company data, they're putting it on their cell phone or their company laptops. In many cases, they haven't been trained, so they're exposing your data, unnecessarily creating risk. And so this is what companies have to do, get a policy.
Yeah.
Second thing you have to do is then, basically say, if you want to do this, offer trainings. I know a really great lady in a red jacket that can offer you trainings.
Yes.
And to say, let's give you the tools so you know how to protect our data. This is our fruit. The more fruit that comes out the tree, everyone gets fed. So bring them into this process. They are owners in this process because it's their intellect that's co-partnering with the large language model to create the result. So bring them into it and then do change management with your executive leadership just to say, hey, guess what? This doesn't just mean the front of the line workers. There are many jobs within the CEO's office that also will get very streamlined. HR is one of them. So it's not rank and file employees. Everyone has some optimization that can happen on AI. And I think we just have to be honest about what that really looks like. And that's hard to do because it's kind of scary and disruptive.
Indeed. Well, thank you very much, Cheryl, for this nice wrap up. It was perfect on time. So I would like to thank you for being my guest today on our podcast and to showing that women in tech, we are powerful and with intentions.
This is true.
And with feet on the ground. Amazing. So thank you very much. That was a great talk. I'm very looking forward to continue collaborating across the Atlantic.
Yes.
And to make innovation great.
Yes, we can do it.
Yes, we can. Thank you everyone for listening and see you to the next episode.